What if I asked you, what was the worst shipwreck ever? You'd probably say it was the RMS Titanic that capsized on April 14th in 1912, claiming 1,514 lives on board. Now, while that answer wouldn't be totally off base, what if I told you there was a shipwreck deadlier and more disastrous than the Titanic? While it may be impossible to believe, there was a shipwreck that was deadlier than the Titanic. And this disaster happened not so long ago that it's forgotten in the dusty pages of the history books, but happened as recently as 2 years after the new millennium. In this video, we'll be taking a deep dive into the untold story of one of the greatest civilian maritime disasters in history. Come with me as we explore the story of incompetence, negligence, corruption, and cover-ups that kept one of the greatest shipwrecks in history under covers for over 20 years. This is the untold story of the ill-fated passenger ferry, MV LeJoola, one of the worst peacetime maritime disasters the world has ever seen, and the shipwreck that shook Senegal to its very foundation. Thursday, December 26, 2002 was unlike any other day for the captain and the crew of the MV LeJoola, a passenger ferry that moved a wide range of passengers from the coastal town of Zenjurikor in the Casamance region through the coast of Gambia to the Senegalese capital of Dakar. LeJoola, named after the Joola people of southern Senegal, was constructed in Germany and had its maiden voyage in 1990. Up until this fateful Thursday, the vessel had tested the Senegal-Gambia coastal waters for 12 years with its twice-a-week journey from Dakar and back, with the exception of the previous year, when the ferry was out of service for maintenance and repairs. In fact, the LeJoola had resumed operations for 2 weeks before embarking on its ill-fated journey. Like every one of its journeys to Dakar for the last 12 years, passengers trooped in as usual to take their place in the vessel. It was a diverse group, from the usual tourists looking to explore, to mango and palm oil vendors carrying along their wares, to university students on their way back to Dakar. Also, in this particular journey, there were a few non-regulars, precisely a football team traveling to the capital for a crucial match. Nevertheless, the journey was promised to be uneventful until it was decidedly not. By design, the MV LeJoola was built to carry 536 passengers, 35 cars, and 44 crew members. But, in the 12 years of its operation, she never set sail without at least 4 times the required number of people, half of whom would board the vessel without any form of identification or ticket. Of course, to stay in the first-class cabins, you'd have to book a ticket. Same with the second-class cabin. The third-class cabin and the deck, however, were unusually crowded with a mixed multitude of characters, those with a ticket and those without. The situation played itself out as usual on the MV LeJoola on an unfortunate Thursday afternoon. That morning, it started out normal and uneventful. Up on the deck, university students were returning to Dakar for the fall semester and kept themselves busy with a game of cards. Those who weren't playing hung around the deck chatting, and others flirted away from the far eyes of the conservative parents, the ocean creating a fitting ambiance for their romantic adventures. Tourists from all over the world lounged as the Hollywood's Air Force One kept them entertained. Meanwhile, down in the corner of the overcrowded third-class compartment, the teenage football team on its way to the capital for a tournament treated themselves to some morale-boosting songs. Shortly before the trip was to begin, all groups had settled in for the journey that would likely end by 6 a.m. the next day. The usual festivities that accompanied such voyages were also high in gear. And then finally, the trip started. As a hot afternoon gave way to an evening sunset, more passengers trooped to the deck to bask in the cool evening breeze and enjoy the sunset. So, there were roughly hundreds of passengers that cramped to the back of the deck that evening chatting, familiarizing themselves, and for the first-time travelers, getting used to the journey. The festivities continued around the LeJoola as the night fell. The restaurant below the deck was packed with passengers who were enjoying the night's concert as a singer thrilled the crowd. The height of the festivities was also the best time for most of the vendors and others who had no ticket to find a place to sleep for the night. So while some other passengers were joining in for the nightly festivities, others were settling in for the night. Unknown to the feasting passengers, though, somewhere on the horizon, something sinister was brewing. A combination of clouds and strong winds had built up and was approaching the LeJoola, which meant that a storm was on the way. As the rains approached the vessel, everyone on the deck sought cover. Most of the passengers were hiding in the lower cabins of the vessel, and this turned out to be the first undoing of the LeJoola ferry. Remember, the LeJoola was carrying 4 times its capacity on this voyage. With this movement of weight from one end of the vessel to another, the LeJoola tilted to the left, and this was yet another step in the series of events that led to the eventual submersion of the vessel. As the ferry tilted sharply towards the left, the water started to pour through the vessel through some of the open portholes. The tilt also affected the garage area as the freight and the vehicle slid, further impacting the balance of the vessel. To make matters worse, as the freight and the vehicles rocked the raging room, a large generator powering the ferry became untied, rocking the boat further and plunging it into total darkness. Up to that point, panic filled the air in the LeJoola, but when the generator blew up and darkness descended upon the ship, things shifted from panic and fear to outright hysteria. People scrambled to cling on to whatever they could lay their hands on. And, with the hysteria in the air, the already dangerous condition of the ship worsened and the ferry tipped sharply to the right. The ferry was filling with water, and based on its trajectory, it was set to capsize within minutes, throwing everything and everyone aboard into the water. Within minutes, everyone's fears happened, and the LeJoola completed its deadly trajectory as it slowly began to sink. At first, it was all noise and chaos, and people screamed and cried for help. But the very next second, it all became eerily quiet minutes after the LeJoola had started its trip to the bottom of the water. What followed next was a series of mistakes, negligence of duty, and outright incompetence that turned a situation that could have been salvaged into one of the worst maritime disasters in history. Hang in there, because we're going to explore what followed.